Good evening, everyone. Hi, thank you, Michael, for the introduction. As he said, my name's Paul Hiscock. I'm an author. I write mainly short stories at the moment, although I have novels in the works. And the reason I have those novels to work on, and any of the short stories published that I've had, is largely due to something called Nanowrimo. And that's what I'm mainly going to talk to you about this evening. If I can just switch over to presentation. Here we go. Right. As Michael said, I've had a number of short stories published now in a wide range of anthologies in a wide range of genres. I believe I'm currently up to 17 stories, with 3 more that I know of coming within the coming months. And on screen, you can see a selection of some of the books that I've appeared in. However, 10 years ago, none of these existed. I'd always wanted to be an author, but it was one of those things that I just never quite got on with. I was one of those someday authors, one of those authors who's always a bit too busy, always not quite ready to start writing my novel because I needed to think about it a bit more, or I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to write, or just that I was uncertain that I was really good enough, really ready. There's this myth out there that says that you need to have a lifetime of experience and to have done all sorts of things to be able to write a good novel. And it's very off-putting to people, and it's also complete and utter rubbish. So I spent years writing bits of ideas in notebooks, thinking about the novel that I might write one day. And then I heard about this thing called Nanowrimo, or to give it its full title, National Novel Writing Month. Nanowrimo has been around quite a long time. It started in 1999. At that time, there were just 21 people taking part. It's basically just a group of friends in San Francisco. And it grew and grew. And although it's called National Novel Writing Month, it's far bigger than that. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people around the world take part and try to write 50,000 words of a brand new novel. They take part like me because they want to get started on a novel, because they want to write more, because they just want to have a bit of fun. And people come to it with all sorts of intentions. Some people hope to be published. Some people are just writing for their family to read. Some people just for their own entertainment. It doesn't really matter. The other thing about Nanowrimo is it's open to absolutely everybody of all ages, all backgrounds, including children. And they have a special young writers program where children, teenagers can take part, set targets that are maybe slightly less challenging than the 50,000 words in the adult event, slightly more realistic for them, and come out of it at the end like any other participant, hopefully with a story of their very own. And what's going wrong with that? There we go. And what kind of novel can you write in Nanowrimo? Well, the answer is absolutely anything. The chart on the screen I pulled from the Nanowrimo website. It's a couple of years old, but you can see that there's people writing in absolutely every genre you can imagine. Fantasy being incredibly popular, but across all genres, and including things like fan fiction, because as I said, it doesn't have to be something for publication. It doesn't have to be something that you're hoping to put out there in the world. It can just be for you because it's what you want to be doing. As I said, National Novel Writing Month turned into an international event, massive across the world. And it could have lost something from that initial group of friends sitting together writing, because we can't just sit down with all the hundreds of thousands of people all at once and have a chat. So NaNoWriMo is organised into regions, and region that we live in here in Orpington is Nano Kent, which covers the whole area, including Orpington and a bit of Bromley, right down across all of Kent. There's also a Nano London region for anybody who's watching who feels more attached to the London area, spends more time there, I ought to mention. But Nano Kent is a community of writers from all across Kent. We had 262 people taking part last year. We've got an active Facebook group with over 500 members. And there's people of all ages and backgrounds writing in the full range of those genres that I highlighted just now. And I'm one of the local organisers known as municipal liaisons. There's 3 of us in Kent, and we are the primary people organising events, helping to encourage, cheerlead, wave pom-poms as people come over the finish line on 30th of November, whatever's needed to help keep things running smoothly. And one of the main things we do is organise write-ins, which I've been missing terribly because obviously in the current circumstances, we haven't been able to get together in person. But normally we organise write-ins at coffee shops across the region throughout the year. We've got monthly groups that meet up in Bluewater, in Orpington itself, Maidstone and other places. And then in November, when the event's in full swing, we will have write-ins most days somewhere. And if we can't get to write-ins in person, we have write-ins online as well, people taking part, getting together, having a bit of chat, writing words with each other. And there's a picture of us at one of our write-ins there. We just sit and write our own novels. It's not a group where you have to come along and read extracts from your work or take part in challenges and writing prompts and things. It's simply an opportunity for you to spend some time with some like-minded people working on your project. So, what is the NaNoWriMo Challenge? It starts on the 1st of November every year, starts from midnight if you are so inclined, and every year we have at least a few of us will be online at midnight ready to start writing and cheer each other on. And you simply sit down and write 50,000 words. Now that works out at about 1,667 words a day. It's not exact, but that's close enough. If you write that, by the end of the month, you will have got 50,000 words. And that's it. That's all there is to it. As I said, you don't have to share your work with anybody. You don't have to meet particular criteria. You just have to write the novel that you want to write. And there's a lot of ways to go about doing it. In NaNoWriMo, we refer to planners and pantsers. Planners are the people who prepare, get ready, get themselves all sorted. They come up with outlines, they work out their characters, their backstories, the world that they live in, get everything down so they know exactly what they're going to do. And you can do, in the spirit of the challenge, you can do as much of that as you want before the 1st of November. And then you start writing the actual novel on the 1st of November. I say in the spirit of the challenge because you don't actually have to. It's up to you, really. If you have started a novel and you've written the first chapter and then you put it away in the drawer and not thought about it again, but you want to continue. That's fine. You can just count from the words you write from the 1st of November. If you want to actually spend NaNoWriMo editing your novel that you wrote years and years ago, well, there are people who will be doing that too. They're called Nano Rebels, and they're just as welcome in the community as everybody else. As I said, you've got the planners. They're the ones who are organised. Then you've got the pantsers. And I tend to more end up in this category, mainly due to lack of organisation, if I'm perfectly honest. 1st of November comes around, midnight happens, and hopefully I have an idea of a character and a setting, and I just start writing, and I see what happens to them. And sometimes it works. Sometimes I come out with a story that's got legs and it's going really well. Other times, not so well. And sometimes I won't get to 50,000 words. Sometimes the story I'm writing will stall. It isn't quite ready to be told. It isn't really working. And that's fine too. Over the years, I've been doing this for 10 years now. I've had 7 wins where I've hit the 50,000 words and 3 where I haven't. But every word that I've written on paper has been valuable. It's pushed my writing forward. And in the case of some of the years where I haven't hit 50,000 words, the ideas that I started then, I've taken away, worked on, come back to in other forms another time. As I said, they just weren't ready at the time. And there's a last category, and that's a plantster. And that's the people who do a bit of both, who have a bit of an idea and a bit of but at the same time, like a bit of spontaneity, like to find out their story as they go along. And that's probably what I would be ideally in most of my writing. So if you're thinking of taking part in NaNoWriMo, a few top tips for you from somebody who's been there and won and lost. Firstly, before November, join the community. Join the wider worldwide community and get signed up. Join your local community as well. If you're in Kent, join Nano Kent. If you're in London, join NaNoWriMo London, or wherever you are. The community is one of the best things about NaNoWriMo. It's people who are going to be cheering you on, really excited about the fact that you're taking part, and you will not find any other time of year such support for the idea that you too could be an author. As I said in the previous slide, it's good to have some idea where you're going to start. It saves a lot of head scratching on November the 1st. Try to set aside a regular writing spot. Far easier said than done. As I said earlier, being too busy is one of the biggest impediments to getting on and writing your novel. I'm a full-time dad. I've got a 2-year-old and an almost 6-year-old. I find it very hard to find time to write. And most of the time, it's probably going to be late at night once they've gone to bed. But try, if you can, to set aside some time for yourself, particularly in November, maybe for that 1 month, make the sacrifice of losing some of your TV time, some of the other things you might do in order to take part, take this seriously and give it a good chance. And the last one, tell people. There is nothing like accountability and people asking you how you're getting on. The first year I took part, I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. Not my friends, not my family, not even my wife, nobody, until right near the end of the month. And it was a colossal mistake because they didn't know I was doing it. They didn't know that I needed the time and space. And so I found it even harder than ever, than usual, to carve out the time to write, and ended up writing most of my novel in a blind rush in the last 48 hours or so. Then in November, when you're writing, most important thing, do not delete anything. Turn off your inner editor for the month. Don't go back and correct your mistakes. Don't go back and decide that actually you want to change this character because what you've written isn't making sense. Just stick a note in your text saying, fix this later, because every word you're writing is pushing you forwards. And that forward momentum is what NaNoWriMo is really about. It's about getting past those initial fears, getting past the first sentence and pushing forwards so that you don't just have an idea, but you have a manuscript, a full story that you can edit, that you can work with. Because until you've got something to work with, you're nowhere really. Get ahead on your word count. I said it's 1,667 words a day. Odds on something is going to happen. That means that you're going to have a bad day. You might get ill. It is November. There will be a lot of colds around. You might just have a really bad day. If you build up a bank of words in advance, then you've got a bit of breathing space. So if things go wrong, you can say, it doesn't matter, I'm still on target. Spend time with your fellow writers. As I said, if we're able to be doing write-ins in person, come along to events, meet people. Writing community is lovely and supportive, and everybody's wanting to wish everybody else well. November is a wonderful time to make friends, a wonderful time to build up a support network that will keep you going in your writing life for years and years to come. And if you can't get to events, either because of the events aren't happening or because they're too distant, you're too busy, spend time online with people. We've got in November, there's people online all the time, and they're chatting and writing and sprinting to write their words, the same as we are in person. And you will get that same sense of community, just maybe without somebody selling you a cup of coffee as well. Finally, don't give up. Even if you get behind, keep going. Every word you write is another word towards your novel that you wouldn't have had before. And just don't worry, have fun. Okay, I talk about winning, but NaNoWriMo isn't competition. Winning NaNoWriMo simply means you've written 50,000 words. Nobody else is reading them just because you took part. You're welcome to share them with whoever you like, but you don't have to show people to prove you've won. There's no, it's simply on an honor system. It's about challenging yourself to do something amazing. And also just to say, because everybody always asks, sadly, there are no publishing contracts on offer. It isn't a competition. There's nobody going to read your book just because you took part and say, wow, I want to publish this. And to be honest with you, that's probably just as well. Because most of us, what we've written by the end of November is not very good. It's draft zero. It's the ideas splurged down on paper that one day, with rewriting and a bit of editing and a lot more work, will hopefully turn into something publishable. But the act of getting those words down on paper will change your writing life. And the friends you make along the way as well, it will all take you forward in your publishing journey. As I said, I took part in my first NaNoWriMo in 2011. Before that, I hadn't had anything published. I submitted the odd idea, but nothing. NaNoWriMo changed the way I thought about writing. It changed the way I wrote. And within 2 years, within 1 year, I'd had my first short story accepted. Within another year, that had been published. Now, 10 years later, as I said, I'm up to 20 stories written, no end in sight, novels that I'm working on that I hope one day to get published. And I'm the author that I always dreamed that I would be. And I'm not a one-off. It's not just me that's had books published, stories published because I took part in NaNoWriMo. On the screen is a selection of books, short story collections, all written by people from the Nano-Kent region, or at least who were in the Nano-Kent region at one point or another. I know a few people have moved away, but these are all books that wouldn't have happened without NaNoWriMo, and all amazing achievements by wonderful authors who I'm also proud to call my friends. So, just to wrap up my presentation, last slide, simply where do you go next? There's Nanowrimo website. That's the main place to go. You can sign yourself up, find out more about the event, and when November comes around, you can record your progress there. You can take part in the forums, talking to people around the world about anything to do with writing. If you've got kids who want to become writers, who are interested in it, the Young Writers Program is there as well. There's reams of resources there to help young writers get started, to help you encourage them to get their stories written. If you want to join Nano Kent, we will be delighted to have you. There's a link there to our Facebook group. That's the most active online hub for the group, and it's the place to come to chat about writing, to find out about what's going on in the region. Lastly, if you've been inspired to find out more about my stories and what I write, there's a link there to my own website, which has details of all my stories and publications.